We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my other counterpart, if you will, Joe DeLeone. What's going on, Joe?
Not much. We've got more conference alignment drama. It's February. It's the end of February, and we have already more and more drama. I'm excited to get into it.
We do. It would appear that the ACC is trying to negotiate a new deal with ESPN. We will talk on this. I think there's one team that can save. What are you doing?
Just trying to fix the volume on the volume on my headphones.
This is what I see you doing.
Because it's the worst microphone design. I didn't realize I was being that distracting. It's the worst microphone design because you're like petting it. It's I look like I have like a tick or something that I'm like trying to mess with the microphone.
I don't know. I thought you had like a nervous tick. You know, like I thought.
I don't get nervous, Blake.
I
never get nervous.
All the success that we were having was finally getting to you. But nevertheless, I think that there's one team in college football that could save the ACC, and also ESPN can get a part of the deal. We'll talk about it here tonight as the ACC is trying to restructure their deal. More conference realignment that we were talking about. All right, well, he said it, so I'll say it. Colin says Notre Dame to save the ACC. Joe, that's what I was going to say. And look, I'm going to be talking nice about Notre Dame for a change. I think that they save the ACC. I think it'll be more beneficial for them to go to the ACC than stay in the Big Ten.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I don't want to rush ahead too much because I've got some thoughts on that.
Okay, well, we'll talk on that here tonight. Also, the most I don't want to, Joe. We put overrated in the comments. Which is difficult. We'll talk about our most overrated coaches in college football right now. I actually want to talk about that first so we can get a little debate in and then get to the more pressing news. And then if we have time, we'll talk about Brent Key over at Georgia Tech. I don't think that you're going to agree with my last one, my third most overrated coach in college football. And I don't know. You said I won't agree with one of yours. So just for the listeners' sake, we have not conversated on any of this. The only ones that we probably know is Mario Cristobal because we talked about that on the last episode. But I think it's going to be interesting, Joe. The guys that we pick
should be good debate. Let's see. One of them we do know that we have similar, which is again it's Mario Cristobal. Like that one's the obvious one. But I'm curious to see the debate. How long is your list? You told me you had 4.
Well, I gave some honorable mentions just in case you took one, just to be like, well, all right, well, I'm going to take this guy and whatever. So we're not just picking the same ones over and over again.
Got it.
But I do have 4, and I have a laundry list of reasons as to why one of these coaches you're going to hate. I'm probably going to get fired. I think you will find out why in about 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll talk about that as well. So Joe, I think we should waste no time here. I think we should get to our break and then we could talk about the most overrated coaches in college football. But before we do that, everybody do us a favor, Joe. 410 subscribers. We were less than 400 big weekend. So we need everybody to go over to our YouTube channel, the Ruffino and Joe Show. Subscribe. We're still giving away the $200. Go to there and AYS Sports on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and we will pick somebody to win $200 in doing so. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe as well. And everybody on Facebook, absolutely dominating the numbers. Y'all are amazing. You're champions of the sport. You're the real champions, as Kevin Durant would say about his mom at an MVP. What do you call that? A ceremony. But nevertheless, do us a favor by hitting the like and share there as well, and to all of those groups. So, Joe, let's waste zero time on this. Sorry about our good friends over at BetOnline. I will give you the first rebuttal on who's the number one coach that you think is the most overrated. Talk about that in 50 seconds when we return.
Sir.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. So let's start there. Okay, if you don't know who the voice of that is Sam Ehlinger from the University of Texas. So just in case you're just joining us, Joe and I are going to talk about our most overrated coaches in college football. Joe, I will give you the floor. Who is your number one most overrated coach in college football right now?
So I did some thinking on this, and I want to be a little creative on it. We're going to talk about Mario Cristobal. I think he's overrated for different reasons, but the biggest for me has to be James Franklin from Penn State.
Okay.
So I was thinking this over, and James Franklin has had a successful career as a Power 5 coach. He has 4 11-win seasons. He has a 78-36 record at Penn State. He does have 3 New Year's Six bowl wins. But the way that I see it, with a program as massive as Penn State, with a brand as big as Penn State's, for the national notoriety that it has, it's one of those few programs before Franklin got there and before the massive scandal that they dealt with. And I know that some could argue that that is a difficult circumstance to produce national championships with after, and it maybe killed them. But it's been far enough past that, far enough removed from that, where they have not returned to that same level of national notoriety. I feel as though the Penn State brand has dropped off. It is now just a chip in one of the pieces in the Big Ten, one of the better pieces in the Big Ten. And there's a lot of inconsistency too with James Franklin's success at Penn State. Good coach. He is a good coach. I thought it was a joke that he was considered for a lot of these openings. He was brought up for the LSU gig at one point. I remember when that was a possibility.
No, that was just the people who brought that up was so full of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He wasn't really an actual candidate for the job.
No, he was not.
The guy has done less with more than I think most coaches in college football. Look, if they're content with this, like, this is the trajectory that I feel Marcus Freeman is going to reach, is just a bunch of good bowl wins and a few 11-win seasons that he hangs his hat on, and that's it. No conference championships, no playoff berths or anything along those lines, no national championship competitions, and a very good roster every single year, but not an elite one. They, by far for me, James Franklin, the most overrated.
All right, I'm going to just rebuttal just a little, okay?
Okay.
Let me just say this. He should have a statue outside of the University of Vanderbilt for winning 6 games, 9 games, and 9 games. Yes. He went to the Music City Bowl. He went to the Compass Bowl. He was in the top 25 at Vanderbilt, okay, and did some really good things at Vanderbilt.
Bonkers.
I agree with you that he's had some more lackluster seasons. However, he has had 4 11-win seasons, and I do think that not all wins are created equally. I also believe, and something that me and you have talked about off record that I will bring up here, I think Penn State is one of the as much film as I've watched on them the last 2 weeks, and I told you this last week, Penn State might have a little something brewing. You look at what they got.
We've been saying that every year, though. That's my problem with it. Everyone's like, Penn State.
No, not like this. Not like this. Not like this. What they're going to return along the offense and defensive lines, what they got returning at skill, what they got returning in that DB room. Listen, I'm just telling you, I don't know if they could go and win the Big Ten. Okay. Here's what I do know. I do think that they can get to another 10 or 11 wins. And if he does that, I think you hit so there are programs around college football that you hit ceilings at. I think that Penn State is one. I think that Notre Dame is one.
But they've won national championships. They used to be a powerhouse.
Not playing them. They have never played in to win a natty. Okay? With all due respect, and LSU, people say, oh, Blake said they couldn't LSU. No. I would not count the 1958 national title for LSU an example. I feel as if that you got to play to win it all. And for me, a hot take on this, everything before 1998, flush that baby down the toilet because I don't really care because you didn't play to win it, right?
Right.
We have not been in that situation. My point is on James Franklin, I think he's a good coach. He's a really just good coach. I just don't know if I could say he's completely overrated. That'd be my only thing. Now,
wait, I just add a piece to this that
all right.
I'd like to add. He has, and as we know, the Big Ten is very top heavy. There are 3 to 4. There's 2 elite teams or 1 elite team every year, and then it's kind of just really good and then crap. It's just very even keel crap. Them getting to 11 wins is the result of just beating up on all the crappy, overhyped teams.
I don't agree with that.
Mediocre teams.
But they came to Auburn and smacked them. Smacked Auburn in Jordan.
Auburn was a joke this year, though. They were a mess.
Hey, but you know what? You know who else couldn't go into Auburn and absolutely dominate? Bama.
That's true, but it's also a rivalry game. I think it's a little bit different. My main point here, my takeaway is that they can never beat Michigan and Ohio State when it matters. And that's why I think that, like you're saying, they've hit the barrier. They're not going to break through it. And we need to stop acting like James Franklin is, this great coach. I think that there's some people believe that he's a top 10 coach in the game for how long he's been around and the wins that he's had at Penn State. But I push back. He doesn't have any signature big wins that I can say this is an elite coach in college football.
I disagree with that. They've won the Big Ten since he's been there. He's got a Big Ten championship, and they kept him out. Remember, they kept him out of the playoffs and put Ohio State in, and Ohio State couldn't score a point. So, I mean,
you're right.
So, I mean, let's not act like he hasn't had recent success and that they got passed over because, they got 2 losses. Okay, so just throwing that out there. Okay. Here's going to be my number 1 overall pick. You ready? Steve Sarkisian.
I knew that was coming. You played the soundbite. I knew that was coming.
Joey's 59-47 as a head coach, 55.7% winning percentage. He's never won 10 games. And I constantly hear from you included, constantly, wait till Sark gets that puppy rolling. Wait till Sark gets that puppy rolling. Well, the first time he wins 10 games at Texas will be the first time that he wins 10 games as a head coach, period. Okay, everybody remembers him at Washington. Oh, Sark was good at Washington. Mr. Blake, Sark was good at Washington. He won 5 games in 2009, 7, and 8 from 2010 to 2013. He couldn't even get out of his own way at USC. He won 9 games and won 3, okay? And then we know what he's done at Texas with the 6 wins and 8 wins. He's not a good coach when it comes to the way the pedestals that you and others put him on.
Okay.
He's not.
Here's where I push back. I think you're putting too much stock in how high the pedestal is that I and some others are putting him on. Now, look, Texas fans are delusional. There's a few delusional ones over there.
Clips that if you said, I'm quoting, wait till Sark gets that puppy rolling.
But I have never said, and I don't believe that Sark is already producing success at Texas. I'm saying that he's a good coach, and once he gets the right recruits and the right circumstance, he's capable of turning this into a competitive team. And there are signs of progression with massive limitations and a screwed up locker room culture that he was stepping into. It's not easy to completely rework the situation he was dealing with, that he was dealt. I don't think that's fair to hold him to that. I will say, finding out that he was not as good at Washington and putting that in the true perspective does give me a little bit of pause. But we do have to admit, to some extent, he has had a bit of a rocky road that I think disrupted his progression as a coach. He had to start from scratch completely because of all the alcohol-related issues that he dealt with transitioning.
No, he didn't. He went to Atlanta, and he went to Bama, then he went to Atlanta, and then back to Bama. That's not starting over from scratch.
Well, he was a head coach, and then he let that derail his career.
Every year get fired and go be an OC somewhere. Lane Kiffin comes to mind. Same deal. A lot of coaches have had to do that. You know what's more interesting is you go James Franklin as your number 1 overall pick, and James Franklin has more 9-win seasons at Vanderbilt than what Steve Sarkisian has.
He's been a head coach longer.
It doesn't matter. No, well, let's look at this. So James Franklin's been
12 seasons.
Now hold on. For 9 years and 3 years, 12 total years. Yeah. Sark has been a head coach for 9 total seasons. So
you difference.
Hold on, you little Rudy Poo. You take the same amount of time.
Okay.
James Franklin's been at Penn State, who, by the way, Jerry Sandusky was still going to court and still was really prevalent in everybody's mind when he took over at Penn State. And you're trying to make me believe hold on, that James Franklin is a worse coach or on the same level or same breath as Steve Sarkisian.
But that's not what I'm saying, though. First of all, he took over from Bill O'Brien, who we've all illustrated. I think Bill O'Brien is a great
31 scholarship players.
He's still
31.
Bill O'Brien is the one who fixed the program, and then he took over. I don't give as much credit to James Franklin.
The butt chin couldn't win at Penn State. Stop that.
But here is my point, though. I am not saying that they are on the same level. My argument is that some people debate that James Franklin is a top 10 coach. There are some people who say he's top 10, top 15.
Those people also smoke meth on their off time.
But I don't think that anyone has ever said that Steve Sarkisian's a top 30 head coach. I don't think anyone has said that.
Horse manure.
Who has had him ranked? Big Game Boomer? Who's ranking him in the top 30?
Okay, first off.
Sorry, friend of the show.
Big Game Boomer and bad ratings, I will agree with you instantly and all that. But my thing is that I've got you quoted in saying, wait till Sark gets that puppy rolling. What puppy?
But just because I'm saying that, it's me being I'm projecting. I am projecting without results.
10 wins. If he never gets to 10 wins, which he hasn't done in 9 seasons.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to just I hear about recruiting. I hear about Arch Manning. I hear about him doing everything good. I hear he only lost to Alabama by a point. Well, newsflash, sunshine, he's still getting them cheeks clapped over and over and over again. He's a 55.7% percentage winning coach, and you're supposed to make me sit here and believe he's not overrated. He doesn't deserve the University of Texas head coaching job. He got it because Saban and what they were doing offensively had no business, because those pieces were already recruited. Tua came because of Lane Kiffin. Ruggs came out and said he came because of Lane Kiffin. You have so many players saying that they went to the University of Alabama for Lane Kiffin, and Sark got that success. That's the only thing. They were about to pay that man $3 million. He's a great OC, but until he wins 10 games, Joe, do you understand how easy in today's game for some coaches at a university like Texas it is to win 10 games? Ask Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley, and then stop giving me excuses about
why ranking him in the same vein.
But my point is, when you put posters up as coaches around the country, you cannot, especially when it comes to recruiting, he's underperforming. You know that, and I know that. He's an underperforming head coach.
But also, one point I'd like to add in here, you're forgetting the fact that on this program, I have said that if there is not a sign of progression, he gets fired. I am willing to commit to that statement. That Sark, and I believe Sark, if he does not take a step forward and win 10 games next year, he will and should be fired. If he wins the same amount of games next season, should be fired, and they should start from scratch. They should hire Sonny Dykes. But the whole point is that he stepped into a messed up situation. Tom Herman set him up with a messed up locker room culture, and
Joe,
we have
you
evidence of that. We have evidence of that.
But Joe, you have to explain to me, do you believe that Clay Helton left USC with a worse locker room, or Ed Orgeron left LSU? Because you really can't, when they're in a bowl game with 33 scholarship players playing Kansas State, you cannot, no. Stop that.
Did either of those teams have strippers and monkeys owned by strippers biting children? Did they have players recording videos of coaches
LSU
yelling at them on the bus?
Well, LSU had somebody sue them for $100 million. Okay. And USC had the enrollment and the enrollment scandal that was going on that football players were involved in. Everybody's got a little something when it comes to this dysfunction. Nobody. Texas,
but I'm talking about locker room culture, though. I'm talking about like dealing with guys that aren't bought in.
To change the culture.
But that's what he's doing. They had a huge step forward last year.
It does what?
Compared to the first season, it was a huge step forward. They put up a fight against Alabama. They won way more games than they did.
You actually beat Kansas.
They have shown a step forward, but that's my whole point, is that if he turns it around and if there's a sign of progression next year, they have the recruits in place and they have the roster in place to be a competitive roster. That has been my whole point.
But that has nothing to do with what he's already done. Being overrated is past tense, not future tense.
Again, that's part of what I'm talking about here is where has he been rated, though? Where do you see the public consensus is on him?
Oh, God, you know where. I don't have to mention them, but you know.
But in what ranking number? If you had to give like a general public consensus ranking number,
would put Sarkisian in the top 20 of head coaches in the country. I've seen
okay, then that is overrated. If anyone does
let me say this. He's been on threes top 20. 247's top 20, Rivals is top 20, ESPN's top 20. So now I'm supposed to sit here and think that he's a top coach. You know who's a top coach? Not him. I couldn't think of something fast enough, but not him.
Look, I will concede that if we're going off of those rankings, yes, I will concede that. He needs to prove himself more.
Go to your number.
My number two, I think that mine are a little bit, this one's a little more tame. Mario Cristobal one's not tame.
Can we just, hold on very quickly. So if we have three, can we just say Mario Cristobal's both of our number twos? Is that fair?
Yeah. Do you want to get to Mario Cristobal now then?
No, we can do him. Okay. We can do him last.
I think that Shane Beamer has been painted to be this underrated coach. I believe that Shane Beamer has been painted to be this underrated coach at South Carolina.
Did you come on the program of AYS every Saturday morning and use the word cock?
Because it's funny, Blake, because it's funny. That's why I came on here and said that. That was because it was funny. It's a good bit. It's funny to say cock every other word.
You wanted to go buy a shirt that says Catholics versus cocks.
Yes. And because they're a joke. That's the point. South Carolina is only capable. Their only outlook is being a meme. They're not a competitive, consistent football team. They've got, some athletes here and there, and they'll upset a team like Tennessee when their starting quarterback goes down with an injury and beat an overrated Clemson team when they have the opportunity to. But Shane Beamer can't even keep his roster in place. Jaheim Bell, Austin Stogner, all these guys dipped. All these guys left South Carolina. They are in
a whole lot. That really doesn't mean a whole lot, though.
I think it does. But my point is that I think everyone saw what Shane Beamer did last year, and they ranked them really highly after those wins. And they're all saying, like, wow, watch out for South Carolina next year. They're going to be a really competitive team. I don't see it. I don't see a roster that competes with the schedule that they have to face. I think that at maximum, they're consistently a 7-win team, and that is it.
Okay, let me throw this out here to you. You ready?
Yeah.
In the first 2 years of a head coach, here's a stat for you. Of the first 2 years as a head coach, the strength of schedule has never been tougher for this head coach ever in his first 2 seasons. Name that head coach.
Is it Shane Beamer?
It's Shane Beamer. In 2021, they had the number 3 overall strength of schedule, and they won 6. Or Actually, they won 7 games. They went 7-2. Believe it or not, their strength of schedule was number 2 But then when you put in the average and the way that they do strength of schedule, it came out to 3.31. They had the second toughest schedule. And by the way, they had lost, 8 or 9 games the season before? Okay, that's number one. They won 8 games this year. I agree with you that the hype with him to some extent can go a little bit exceeded. Like, I don't like, I think it's a little corny when he does the video with Soulja Boy in the background. Hop up at the bed, turn my swag on. Like, okay, dude, you're not that cool. You literally probably have Pokemon cards. But then nevertheless, he had the 4th toughest strength of schedule this past year and won 8 games. And then I got you defending Sarkisian a little bit more than Shane Beamer. I get where you're coming from. However, it's not as if that he's at a Texas or anywhere else. He's at South Carolina doing this when, quite honestly, you have a 2-time defending, or not 2-time defending, but a 2-time national champion in your own state as a coach. He went to the national championship 4 times. 4 times. And he's doing some success. I think he's building more than Sark is.
I disagree. What has he done to build there,
he almost won. He beat Tennessee badly, and then he beat Clemson. Let me throw this your way. Name a better win that Sarkisian has at Texas. I will make another argument to you.
Okay.
Who has 2 better? Hold on. Who has 2 better wins in the country in the last 4 weeks of the regular season, better than South Carolina?
I argue that this fits into what I'm talking about with Beamer's, that I think that those wins are also overhyped. I think beating Tennessee with an injured Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker didn't get hurt until the 3rd quarter, Big Daddy.
I know that he was struggling, but there was a lot of opportunity for them to get back into that game. I didn't think that they were completely out of it. Hendon Hooker goes down with the injury. They were done. There was no recovering. I think that
Joe, they were down by 21 late into the 3rd quarter.
It's still Tennessee.
Joe, here's the problem with that.
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker doesn't play defense. They gave up another 21 points in the 4th.
The other part of that, though, is Clemson dealing with the stubbornness of keeping DJU in. That was
doesn't matter. It does not.
That team shouldn't have been ranked as high as it was, anyways. That was a mediocre Clemson
Texas
team.
Tech's quarterback.
I don't know.
That's who Texas lost to, a team that you have no idea who the starting quarterback is. You see what I'm saying?
It's a fair point. My main takeaway from this is that Shane Beamer is painted as this up and coming coach, and I understand that he has obstacles and it is not an easy path to succeed at South Carolina, but there is this speculation that he is going to have South Carolina ranked every single year, and I think that he benefited significantly from Kentucky having a down year, other programs like Arkansas having a down year, Florida dealing with the drama that they're dealing with. I just believe that he has been opportunistic rather than successful. I don't see a good roster. I think that the way that they got beat by Georgia is more indicative of the type of team that they are.
I would need to go look more into their transfer portal. Okay.
They didn't bring anyone in. They lost more than they brought in.
Okay. Well,
they got completely poached.
Well, we'll see. If he wins 9 games in the SEC next year, you have a lot of apologizing to do. Now,
he won't.
I will tell. But yeah, never mind. We'll just
quote me on that.
All right, you ready for my 3rd one? Then we'll get to crystal ball.
Yeah.
You ready to get really mad?
I'm trying to think. I swear if this is Dan Lanning.
Oh no, not yet.
Okay. All right. Who is it?
Lincoln Riley. I
was actually debating putting him on this.
I think Lincoln Riley is one of the more overrated coaches in college football. You want to know why? Last 2 seasons, he faced 4 ranked teams. He faced the same team twice in Utah. He lost both times to Utah. He got beat by Tulane, and he won by a point against UCLA in their own hometown, I might add. He beat them by 1, the number 16th overranked UCLA Bruins. The season before that, when he was at Oklahoma, So it was already established. Okay. You could be like, well, Blake, he lost to ranked teams. Maybe they weren't ready to go, all the yada, yada, yada. Well, in 2021, his last year at Oklahoma, he lost to Baylor and Oklahoma State. And the only top 25 win at the end of the season, Oregon at the end of the year, in which some people believe that he shouldn't even get that Oregon win for the bowl game because he wasn't there. But I was graceful in giving it to him. My point being, even if I took away that Oregon win, Joe, he's 1-5 against top 25 opponents.
Yep.
The last 2 seasons. When the going get tough, he shrinks. Now, is he a great offensive coordinator? You can't deny that. Nobody can deny that. But I've seen Dave Aranda twice, technically 3 times, twice at Baylor and once at LSU when they faced off against one another. Dave Aranda absolutely shut him down. Shut him down, that entire offense. He's had multiple Heisman Trophy winners. That's cute and all. But Joe, he continues to get blanked by teams in the top 25 and absolutely humiliated. When they lost to Tulane, I really started questioning him as a head coach. And now we're talking about the most overrated coaches in the country. I think for me that until Lincoln Riley can win a playoff game or get to the playoffs consistently more than what maybe he's been doing, what am I supposed to think? It's cute that you win your division. It's cute. But you didn't even win your conference. You let Utah beat you down. Then, there was a lot of talk about him and LSU and coming to the SEC and then Oklahoma, and the Oklahoma beat writers reported that he left Oklahoma ultimately or seeked out other opportunities because he didn't want to come to the SEC. Well, Joe, I just want to tell you, it sounds like when you say stuff like that and do stuff like that, it sounds like you're a little scary to me, okay? So I'm just going to throw it all out there. I think he's a great coach. I think it's great for quarterbacks. His defense and keeping Alex Grinch around is the most puzzling thing I've ever – like, dude, do you realize, Joe, last point, how quickly I would have fired Alex Grinch and told Jim Leonard I will have – speaking of monkeys and cocaine and strippers, I would convince Jim Leonard to come to USC.
But I'm just making sure you're not picking him because you're disappointed that he didn't end up at LSU, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because – and you can even go back to my episode on AYS when he just said he wasn't coming to LSU. I was like, guys, I'm cool with it. Like, I'm cool with it. Great offense, yes. Establishing a whole team, no. Like, have me on record saying this. How do you not know? Believe posted it, and everybody's like, oh, Blake's an idiot. Okay? No, I'm completely fine with him not being the head coach at LSU. I'm going based off of, look at the top 25 wins. Joe, here's an interesting stat for you. Do you know that 2 coaches got fired, and have a better top 25 overall record than Lincoln Riley? 5 coaches have been fired and had a better record than Lincoln Riley over the top 25.
Who are the 2 coaches?
I'm not going to go through all of them. I wrote down so for an example, Ed Orgeron was one. Believe it or not, Tom Herman was another who had more top 25 wins than he did. And then that's the 2 that I wrote down, but because I put Tom Herman ? But if you remember, there were some early times in years that that year that they went and they played, who was it? Georgia and the whatever bowl, and they won it and they beat Georgia and all that. Well, that's a top 25 win that nobody ever really thinks about. So for me, Lincoln Riley's a little overrated for me. He's not a top 5 coach that everybody continues to tell me that he is.
So I actually agree with this one. And first of all, I think a lot of the same arguments that I've tried to bring up with James Franklin, I think are applicable here with Lincoln Riley, where constantly beating up on the bad teams in their conference and racking up all these statistics and having all these impressive stats while having good recruits on the field. But in the important games where you need to produce success, where you need to finish and you need to have good quality plays and wrap out and get those big wins, he doesn't do it. He
No, he
doesn't
gets
do it.
shut
And the
down.
Tulane loss is embarrassing. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, it's great that Tulane won that game, and I love Tyjae Spears, but that's embarrassing to lose to an American Conference team. Are you kidding me that is the best that USC could do? That is the result that you could put on the field, and then not fire your defensive coordinator after the fact? It's all a massive joke that this has been painted as a top 5 coach in college football. I don't even think he belongs in the top 10 until he reaches a playoff and wins a playoff game at USC. I know that one thing I will give him a little bit of a breather for is I feel everyone put this expectation together that he was immediately going to get USC to the playoff. And realistically, that roster was pretty lame that Clay Helton left him with. And for them to get to the playoff in year one was going to be a difficult task. But then to be embarrassed in 2 games, the 2 final games of the season, the way that they were, and not finish strong is very concerning to me for the future of this program. I think that every single year, what's going to happen with Lincoln Riley and USC is that we're going to talk about how good they are, how good this new young quarterback is, how good this new young receiver is. They're going to get up to the brink of it. They're going to shit the bed, and then we're going to be done with it. That's what's going to happen every single year. It's going to be the what if of college football, which is why I'm willing to give this. I 100% agree with you. I think that not enough people are willing to admit this, and I almost didn't even want to bring him up because I almost thought it was a foregone conclusion, if you will, that he hasn't proven himself enough.
Well, and Tom, and so we have an Ohio State fan that tweeted into the show, and another guy that I thought about too, and maybe you could throw in the same category is Tom at Ohio State said Ryan Day. He said, Blake, he's 1-2 against Michigan or TTUN, that team up north, and 1-3 in the college football playoff. The only year he beat Michigan was with Urban Meyer's recruits. Day has gotten beaten in every game that they've gone down in the stretch into the end of the season. And so a lot of those coaches, truthfully, Joe, are in the same boat. But Ryan Day hasn't done it in multiple stops. Lincoln Riley has, but they just aren't accomplishing enough. Like, when I think of, like, when you talk about overrated and you say Lincoln Riley's in the top 5, well, I'm going to tell you a couple coaches that I think until Lincoln can win a national title that people won't think about that are better than him. I think of Jimbo Fisher. Did you know that Jimbo Fisher was 122-44? He's won a national title. He's won 9 games at Texas A&M. He's doing it in the toughest division in the toughest conference in the country. In doing so, okay, cute, you're doing it at Oklahoma and USC, but at least somebody's challenging themselves and going into the toughest division and conference in the country and trying to do it. So I
never get why he left Florida State. I really think that if he stayed, he would have won more national titles.
Well, there's one thing that is for sure, and Florida State does have a massive problem with this. They do not put in the money that they think that they do. No. Like, their facilities are below par. If you've ever been to Tallahassee, those facilities are some of the worst that a blue blood is supposed to have. So we'll see, man. Maybe Lincoln the only way Lincoln can salvage this is if he starts recruiting better up front with the big dudes.
Yes. I have a thought, but I don't want to backtrack to Sark. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to derail the show because we have the ACC thing to get to.
Okay. Some honorable mentions. I have Billy Napier being one.
I think everyone's kind of cooled off on Billy.
I agree. You Sunbelt Billy. You want to get a couple minutes? You want to get to Mario Cristobal?
Yeah, we talked about this a bit on the last show, and Mario Cristobal steps into a situation at Miami where, he's the darling child of the program, where he came and was a former player. Doesn't fit the vibe for me. Really doesn't fit the vibe. I feel like a lot of the successful coaches at Miami have been players coaches, where they let the personalities shine. They let those guys that are bright spots in the media and are fun stories to pay attention to really open up themselves. But instead, we've got a hardo leading a team in Miami. That just doesn't fit for me. The thing with Mario Cristobal, didn't do anything at Oregon. Nothing at Oregon. 67-67. And I know that Florida Atlantic, it is, or was it Florida International?
Florida International, yeah.
Florida International, like, that's a dead-end job. That's not one that you're going to produce success. No one has produced success there. But he has been painted at Oregon as this great mind in the Pac-12 and one that was the future of the Pac-12, and everyone was so devastated when they lost him. And I argue that that was a circumstance that was so much better for Oregon that they lost him, because they now have an actual coach that is not overbearing and over controlling. I talked about this in the last show. The guy does too much. I mentioned how he used to, with the social media department at Oregon, and I'm sure he still does it at Miami, has to approve of anything that's posted. That is micromanaging. That is absolutely micromanaging, and he needs to get out of his own damn way. Otherwise, they're going to win 6 games every year. This roster's okay. It's improving, but I don't have high hopes for them.
I agree. Now, here's what I ultimately believe. Do I think that he can get them a little bit back more on track to maybe some extent with the recruiting? Maybe it could happen. But bro, he had a top, arguably a top. What would you put Justin Herbert in the NFL? He's a top what quarterback in the NFL?
7. That's me being.
So you had a top 7 quarterback at Oregon, and you get beat by Auburn.
A top 5 pick defensive end, and Kayvon Thibodeau too.
Kayvon Thibodeau. Okay, he's had dudes up Panay Sewell.
Just about to bring him up.
Is another dude. So here's my only thing with Cristobal. He has recruited really well, and I think will recruit really well. But he's not. There comes a point, Joe, in today's game and today's day and age, in today's game, buddy, if you're not winning at least 8 games at minimum year one, I think it's a massive failure. And people look at me and say, Blake, you're delusional. You're delusional if you think that that you can just go in there and win 8 games. Joe, with the portal the way that it is, and you got Joe Ruiz or John Ruiz, whatever the big booster is, you're spending all this money, and for what? You can't even win. You got Middle Tennessee State physically dominating you at the point of attack. You have literally the second to worst SEC team in the country, or in their division, in their conference. You got Texas A&M physically dominating them, which I still have my thoughts on A&M. I still think up front they're going to be otherworldly on the offense and defensive line. I don't think you can deny them of that. But regardless, Joe, they're not doing anything. Like, you go out and get Cohen from Alabama, and I get that. That's cute. You want a popsicle? I mean, but at the end of the day, like, he's a 67-67 coach.
He hasn't done anything. And he's been crowned.
How about
they were ranked ridiculously last year. For them to be ranked at the beginning of the year was a farce. They were
top 15.
That was a joke. And I swear to God, if I see them ranked this year at the beginning of the season or after week 1, I'm going to lose my goddamn.
Uh-oh.
What?
We had you this for like 20 seconds.
Well, my internet's not bad. Am I gonna get
Photoshop
with some? Okay,
probably. If somebody sticks a South Carolina Gamecock in your mouth, then you know why. Manny says on YouTube that we're much happier with Dan Lanning, and Mario won't get away from his offense. He is stubborn and
it's an archaic, terrible offense.
Well,
terrible offense.
Well, yeah. Let me just tell you something. Mario Cristobal is the most my way or the highway coach, it feels like to me.
That's my whole point.
That it's ridiculous. So I don't think they're going to be good this year. So I went on one of these Miami Twitter spaces. They kicked me out of it. They said I was so dumb. I was like, guys, you're not going 12-0. That was the reason I got kicked out. And they were telling me that they had like Ali Highsmith or whoever, Highsmith or whatever. He's over player personnel. And I'm like, that means Jack Diddley squat to me. Okay. Look, I will tell you this. They offered Joe Birdie $1.8 million to be their offensive coordinator last season. Not only did he tell him no, he said not in a blue moon with Cristobal. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, I can't imagine him trying to call that offense. And again, that I have,
they sold him that Tyler Van Dyke was a top 5 pick. I was told that Joe Brady told him that he's not a top 5 round pick. And it looks like he was right.
He's not. I said that when I did my quarterback rankings ahead of this class. I said it that he has a bunch of padded stats against bad opponents. He's not a good quarterback, and nobody wanted to listen to that argument. But the guy has an average arm, not a good decision maker. He throws into a lot of double coverage. That's not the future of the position. But again, I have so many stories from multiple people at different places that he's been of him being a micromanaging, as you're saying, a my way or the highway type of a guy. You can't succeed like that. You might get good, talented people to join your coaching staff, to join your roster as recruits and players. But eventually that shit gets old. It gets old, and nobody wants to be in a restrictive place, especially at Miami. That's supposed to be freedom. It's supposed to be the pinnacle of freedom and having fun and enjoying yourselves. And it doesn't sound like it's being set up for that.
Jason Brumfield says Lane Kiffin's overrated. Do you agree with that? I don't.
I think he's properly rated, and I think that Ole Miss is a tough program to like consistently win at. I think that Hugh Freeze has gotten them the highest that they've been in a long time.
No, believe it or not, the most wins that they've ever gotten in the regular season, Lane Kiffin was the head coach.
That's my point, is that the only other person we can point to is Hugh Freeze.
Right.
They're typically not a very successful team that gets all these 5-star recruits.
You're way too young to remember this. You probably could throw in David Cutcliffe when he had Eli Manning. Those teams offensively were really freaking good, really freaking good. But I'm with you, though. I mean, nobody's won 10 games at Ole Miss in a regular season ever. I think Lane Kiffin, Lane is doing some really interesting things, like bringing in Pete Golding. I think as their recruiting gets better and can get better at Ole Miss, I think that Ole Miss will get better. Now, are they above the 8-9 win mark? No, they benefited to an LSU that was down in the West, an A&M that was a little down in the West. So with both of those teams being a little bit down, they succeeded in 2021, but that's not going to he's going to have to really do some good things.
It's an uphill battle.
Have to really hit on Walker Howard as well. All right, Joe, let's do this. Let's transition to the ACC, maybe some teams wanting out of the ACC. But tell our good friends, though, very quickly about our good friends over at BetOnline.
Yes. And as I've said with BetOnline, I get so bored during the offseason, and the only way that I can make it through this offseason is heading on over to betonline.ag, where they have all the updated news, odds, lines, whatever you're looking for sports betting. If you use promo code BELIEVE50, you get that 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that's betonline.ag. BetOnline.ag.
There you go, baby. All right, so let's move to the ACC really quickly. If you've missed it, just giving you a very brief summary. More teams and more reports are coming out today that teams like North Carolina, and obviously we knew about Florida State asking for $120 million to get out of their contract. But, Joe, it looks like more that Florida State AD has been talking with ESPN, and it looks like it's more like $300 million that they would have to pay to get out of it. But it looked like ESPN might give them $150 million to get out of it, which I thought was interesting.
I don't know where they have that money. I don't know where that money's coming from.
Dude, I mean, the truth though is, Joe, they're making billion. They're giving a 30% revenue share to 14 teams in the SEC, and they're giving them $50 million a year. Think about that for just a minute, okay?
Right. It's just perplexing that you hear how much they're struggling, but at the same time, then
did you hear? So the national championship game, that's ESPN, ABC, whatever. Did you know? AT&T, as an example, gave close to $500 million for the Avenue, for that game, because that's their market target value. Dr. Pepper gives close to $500 million a year. You remember those stupid commercials in college football, Fansteel, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, so Northwestern Mutual, a financial advising company, they've given multiple, they gave, what was it, the March Madness, they gave $1 billion for 2 years, $1 billion for 2 years to be the mainstream sponsor. Nevertheless, the ACC, North Carolina, all these other teams are trying to negotiate their deal. to stay a conference. Let me tell you something. You know that I don't have a lot of I'm not a big Notre Dame guy. I don't really love Notre Dame. It's made my hatred for them even more since Brian Kelly came to LSU. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
But Notre Dame could save the ACC. They could save them. ESPN would match the SEC deal. I'm telling you, they would match it, or maybe not match it. They would come extremely close to that SEC deal if Notre Dame entered. I fully believe that.
But it's just not going to happen. If they turn down the possibility to join the Big Ten, which is...
Do we know that they have?
I mean, they would have joined. That was something that was talked about the whole offseason, is that the Big Ten is actively and really badly wants Notre Dame to join the conference. And it makes more sense in my eyes for them to join it because it's better competition. It is a much bigger and better audience. There is more deeper and more competitive teams than in the ACC. So if they're unwilling to go to the Big Ten, I don't know why they would commit to joining the ACC. They've already got their own independent deal with NBC, which makes it complicated.
I think the Big Ten is really crowded, okay, extremely crowded. And I think that for whatever if you believe me on this or not, Notre Dame feels more like an ACC program than a Big Ten one.
I push back on that because regionally they make more sense in the Big Ten. But
regions mean nothing now.
They play in the Big.
When you got USC flying out to Ohio State for a week 2 matchup, screw me with the regions.
The Big Ten, Notre Dame already plays in it for hockey, and at the same time, the Big Ten just signed the deal that they have with NBC. So there's already loose connections
in the ACC for basketball and
baseball. That's the only connection that they have, and that was a while ago when they have that loose affiliation that they built with them. I think with the way that things have shaped up and the way that things have changed, and now that there are bigger entities joining the Big Ten, if they do join a conference, why would they be the biggest shark in a pond full of little fish?
They're not a big shark now. The truth be told,
wait. In terms of being one of the most valuable brands in college football, they are.
No, they're not. I got some stats for you. No, they're not.
Where do they rank? They're top 5.
No, they do not. Joe, believe it or not, they rank 25th.
What ranking are you going off of?
I'm going based off of TV revenue, sites, and how much money that they're portraying from ad sales, and not only ad sales, portraying off of, and probably the biggest thing, attire like jerseys and things like that. Joe, they rank 25th in that category. Do you want to know something whopping? The Pac-12 teams this year got paid by ESPN $10 million more this past year than what Notre Dame makes from NBC.
Well, which is atrocious, which is why that they shouldn't be committing to that independent rights deal with NBC. It's not beneficial as it used to be in the past. But I push back on that being, I wouldn't really necessarily include the TV rights deal in their value. They're still a top 5 brand in terms of them being a nationally watched and followed brand.
But they're not, though, Joe. They're not.
They are.
Joe, they do not have a top 10 watch game in the last 3 seasons. I went and looked it up.
Because they've been overrated. They've been incredibly overrated.
You know who else has been overrated? Texas has been overrated, and Alabama versus Texas was massive. They're not generating. Here's the reason why, too. People don't necessarily watch NBC for football, okay? This has been, this is really, literally, I'm not, Joe, hold on. Let me get to page 2. This is I'm not making this up. This is something that we know. So for whatever it's worth, you can say Notre Dame has their own brand. Yes, they do. But so does everybody else. There are so many other teams that could go independent that would have more revenue than them. And it's not as if Notre Dame's been losing. With all due respect, they've gotten to multiple playoff appearances. This isn't – and here's what's something even more crazier, Joe. Uh-huh. Did you know that somebody told me – now I'm running this down – that ESPN pays you an X amount for making the playoff? Let me give you an example. LSU and Alabama in 2018 for Alabama and 2019 for LSU. This is the last time that we have these records or whatever, and Clemson. You can add Clemson in that. They made an average of $67 million to their athletic department for winning the national championship. So what is it that other teams are getting to just make the playoff? That's a question that I have. Now, I can't look up at Notre Dame because they're a private institution. I can't do a public records request. But my only thing is ESPN, let's just say hypothetically, Joe, they made $30 million to play in the playoff. Joe, they literally made more money in one game in a playoff for ESPN than they did NBC.
Again, I understand what you're saying with the TV rights deal. It doesn't benefit them anymore. My point is that just from a recognizable brand standpoint, it has been a nationally followed brand. It is one of the few brands in college football that has fans in California, in the Midwest, on the East Coast. It is one of the very few that I would argue is capable of saying that they fit that criteria. There are other rankings that you can pull up as the biggest brands in terms of social media following, XYZ. Notre Dame is at the top of those lists. There is a reason why that they are highly sought after. I would also argue that what you're saying about the ACC, I think that them joining this loose affiliation with the ACC and scheduling has hurt them because they're consistently playing shit competition and weak opponents. That is what's driving down the value of those games that you're talking about, is that they're not beating anyone and putting up any competitive fights against anyone. You put them in the Big Ten, it is must-watch football having to go up against Michigan. When they played Michigan consistently, that was a huge game every single year. When they play USC consistently, I think you add UCLA into the mix, Ohio State into the mix. They need to join a conference that has more notoriety. That's my whole point. They're not going to join the ACC. They are a brand more than any other available brand to join one of these conferences for them to expand. They're at the top of the list, I think, for anybody. If any conference could add a team right now, they would all pick Notre Dame because they know the value of it.
All right, last thing because I got to go. Michael Campbell's absolutely ripped me alive. But, Michael, these stats that we're pulling up, Mr. Notre Dame fan, are from the FCC who regulates this. This isn't something that I've made up.
Yeah,
Like Google is your friend, bud. Just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's not true. Google is your friend there, bud. All right, Joe, I do got to head out to my next show.
Okay.
But fantastic stuff as always. You're so wrong on Sarkisian. It's otherworldly, but nevertheless,
watch him win 11 games.
Good for him. In what conference?
The Sun Belt, probably. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see. The years to do it, it's this year.
It's the only measurement. Michael, with all due respect to you,
don't.
Well, with all due respect to him, they literally do the TV numbers.
Yeah. You're right. That argument I don't get.
No, it's not. I mean, never mind. All right.
All right.
We'll see y'all Wednesday.
Hopefully we're back.
We got some news. We'll start guessing it up within the next month, I think, right?
Yeah, post-combine. We're starting to sort some guests out. We're going to get them on.
All right. We'll see y'all see y'all Wednesday. Peace.